OK, we're going to begin with the Daily Mail, the biggest story of the day, Leo.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's the biggest story, but it's certainly the most Daily Mail story. It's fantastic. So Oxfam, the charity, have brought out a new 92-page inclusivity guide telling their staff, how to use the language. Because, of course, if you're doing a job, the most important thing is reading a 92-page guide that redefines the common use of words.
But apparently this was circulated internally for a long, long time. It's just been made public.
Oh, right.
That's what's happened. But it's pretty mad, isn't it?
Some of this stuff, I mean, I'd love to read the whole thing, but just the excerpts that they've got here, I mean, a lot of people are focusing on the fact that mother and father, people are being told to replace that with the term parent. I mean,
yeah.
that kind of makes sense.
Does
but
it?
Other terms... Well, yeah, but I can understand that. Sometimes, well, I mean, I don't understand it, but it's not, for me, it's not the worst thing. So the term pregnant women or people who become pregnant should be used instead of expectant mothers.
Okay.
In case, there's a man out there who's going to squeeze a child through his testes, there's instead of saying migration crisis or refugee crisis, which are terms that I'd have thought are used a lot by Oxfam, we've got to say migration as a complex phenomenon. Like it's some sort of... Are we talking about starlings here?
So the thing about all of this, Steve, is, I mean, this is a very Western obsession, this idea of let's sort of curtail speech along these weirdly middle-class ideological lines. People in the developing countries aren't going to care about this stuff, or probably even understand it, are they?
Yeah, I mean, very few people care about it. The only people who care about it are the kind of people who write 92-page guides on things.
Sure.
That's the problem. I think the aim of being inclusive is great, which is why I can kind of see the sense of saying parent as a general, because you don't really know who's in charge, I remember in the 80s...
You don't know who the parents are these days.
These days, yeah. You're
so conservative, Steve.
No, but I remember in the 80s, there was a move to not say mum and dad in case it was other guardians or something. There's an argument.
It didn't catch on, did it?
And that's not why they're doing it. But there are better things in this report, in this guide, including on race. This is the best thing I've ever read. The guidebook states that minority ethnic person should be used instead of ethnic minority person because it places the emphasis on ethnicity being a minority. Even if that's a good argument, your version does the same, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You've just swapped the words round.
Yeah. And in fact, the current correct term for ethnic minority people is global majority, because, of course, across the globe, they're a majority, and it's white people who are a minority.
Oh, no, but the critical race theorists won't like that, because they sort of depend on the victimhood idea. If you're suddenly the majority, that doesn't work anymore.
Well, I guess you can still be victimised by a small amount. Some of the things, so the word headquarters should never be used because it implies a power dynamic that prioritises one office over another. In the context in which we work, the implication is very colonial, reinforcing hierarchical power issues and a top-down approach. I mean, aren't all organisations to a certain extent hierarchical? It's not. Oxfam's not a completely flat organisation.
I think they're stretching things a little bit. I don't think that's convincing. But there's all sorts of things, and I would question the idea that it's inclusive, because they're encouraging people to use phrases like cis, woman with an X in it as well. Now, these are specifically ideological ideas, and most people don't agree with them. And the staff members, one staff member's already said they're terrified for their jobs because if they speak out against this nonsense, they might get in trouble. So it's not inclusive, it's the opposite. It's actually excluding most of their workforce.
It's inclusive to the right people, to the chosen people.
Right,
it's
okay.
Excluding, it's like the other day we saw a girls' school sports team was banned from a tournament because they refused to play against the trans team. And they said, we're doing this because of inclusivity. And it's like, you excluded those girls. That's not being inclusive. It's the same thing here. A lot of people will find this very
selective.
othering.
Yeah, very selective idea of what inclusivity means.